I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that I've interacted with somebody and have been confused on the way that they're acting towards me. There might be something that triggers them or causes them to act unwholesomely, impolitely, abusively, perhaps even. And more often than not, when we interact with these people or get into these situations, the first thing we do is go into defensive mode. And I'm sure you've been there as well. You want to protect yourself. You want to protect your heart. You want to protect your feelings, your self-esteem. But the true answer to this difficult situation lies beyond oneself. Because when you look at it objectively, you find the truth. And I'm going to explain this truth to you in a moment. And I'm going to do it with this really, really great reference. It's a PDF document. You can Google it and look it up. And it is called The Art of Not Being Offended. The Art of Not Being Offended is a two-paragraph PDF document. And it explains that the reason people act the way they do is because of their conditioning and also their traumatic experiences in life. So for example, I had a roommate, and anytime that I told the roommate that there was a mess in the kitchen or leaving out moldy coffee mugs on the table, he would get really, really upset to the point where he would start throwing things or storm off and cuss me out. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, wait a minute, all I said was, hey, there's a mess here. Would you mind cleaning it up? Of course, I was younger back then, and maybe I didn't portray it in the best way, but I definitely came from a wholesome place and came from it came to it with this compassion, or at least understanding that we live together, and this is something that I'm asking him to do. And at first I became really confused and upset because this person was getting loud and mean and angry. I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to avoid this person. I wanted to speak poorly of this person. But it wasn't until a few months later that he opened up and shared with me that he was abused by his mother for making messes at a very young age. And this went on for years. And so now, at any time when a mess is brought up into his psyche, or if somebody is coming to him with this problem of there is a mess that you created, it actually triggers a deep response in his brain to then act out unfavorably. The art of not being offended has nothing to do with me. His reaction had very little, if anything, to do with me, and mainly a lot to do with his past experiences. Furthermore, conditioning, the way that a person is brought up in their life, may have effect on how they view the world, how they view other people. This is an example of systemic racism and why it can be so prominent in certain areas, because the way that they view the world is not conducive to compassion and love because of the way that they were raised. This is why also people who raise their children with acceptance, compassion, and love end up showing their children the way to be so much more at peace, so much more compassionate and loving towards others. And so what I really want to talk about in this video is, first off, look up that document because it's really profound. But secondly, that a lot of the things that we think about ourselves and about the world can be changed and can be retrained in our brains. So for example, if you're really addicted to your phone, while it may seem impossible to change that addiction, it is possible. You can create and strengthen new neural networks in the brain, and that's where that saying comes from. Neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning there's pathways in your brain, just like a car on a road. And the more that you drive that car on the road, the more that you do that certain thing, the more you strengthen that road, the more easier it becomes for your brain to go towards that pattern or go towards that way of thinking. So for example, if you want to work on, let's say, self-image, self-respect, not letting others harm you, and loving yourself, and it's something that you struggle with, well, I'm going to tell you the truth. It's possible, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be instant. Just like building a muscle in the arm and working out day after day, you need to return to yourself and return to that place of loving kindness for yourself again and again. And wow, it makes a difference. When you show up to change the way that you think again and again at every single day and every single moment that you can, you are retraining your brain. And I really wish more people really understood just the biological aspect of this, because it does go beyond spirituality and it does go beyond biology as well. But it's a blend of these two things, finding that inner peace within ourselves, finding those attachments or those aversions of why we struggle with certain things or why we have certain patterns in our brain that are unfavorable. So learning how to retrain our brain is key for any practice, for any self-growth, for any peace of mind for that matter. I mean, how often are you the victim in your life? How often does the world feel like it's out to get you? Or how often do you find others doing terrible things to you, being mean to you, being abusive? And how often do you find yourself attracting those people into your life? And I really, really believe that it goes hand in hand with biology and spirituality. The biological aspect of training our brains to think and act this way, and then in turn the spiritual aspect of the universal consciousness bringing this into our lives because it's what we believe about ourselves. So it starts simple. It starts today. It starts now. But the best thing that you can do for yourself, in my opinion, goes beyond affirmations even. It goes beyond journaling, but it's simple contemplation and meditation. Because sitting in silence and observing is what builds the strength to then be aware of when we are going down those negative patterned routes. So for example, if I'm thinking poorly of the way that my hair looks all the time, and I think it looks terrible again and again every single day, I'm strengthening that neural network, that road that says your brain looks bad, your brain looks bad, your hair looks bad, your hair looks bad, your hair looks bad. But I need mindfulness of thought. I need awareness of thoughts to then counteract and contradict that thought, to challenge that thought and say, no, my hair doesn't look bad, it looks good. I'm going to start telling myself that my hair looks good because objectively it doesn't look that bad, right? And that's another thing too, just as a side note, is most of the stories that we tell ourselves are lies. Most of the illusions that we create are not real. We only create those because our brain wants problems to figure out. Our ego is always looking for something wrong because it's without going into too much biology, but it is a evolutionary trait to be accepted by our peers. So we have to constantly be checking ourselves and our surroundings to make sure that we're safe. So we need to learn to retrain our brains so that we can start living more peaceful lives. And again, we do that with mindfulness of thought, and you build that through meditation. And so what it looks like is sitting down. Sitting down in meditation looks like sitting down quietly, closing your eyes, either turning on a guided meditation, some sounds, or trying in silence, which can be difficult at first. So I recommend working with a guide. I have some guided meditations here on YouTube that you can find. But then sitting and just simply observing yourself, observing your thoughts. And what happens is a thought will come and then it will go, as long as we let it, as long as we don't grab onto the thought and start to question the thought and think about the thought and try to get our way out of the thought or into the thought. Just like a car on the road, let it come and let it go. Watch it pass. Don't jump in the car. Don't tell the driver to take you to Anxietyville or Depressionville, but allow them to just simply come and go. Now, when you do this again and again and again and again, something amazing happens. You start to live your life mindfully. You'll go out in your daily life, you'll check yourself in the mirror, you'll say, oh, my hair, I don't think it looks that good. And you'll say, wait a minute, I'm working on changing that pattern within myself. I don't believe that my hair looks bad. And although my brain wants to believe that or wants to question it or wants to worry about it, I'm going to challenge that thought and say, no, I don't think my hair looks bad. So mindfulness of thought allows us to be aware of when the negative patterns start to take place. Then we can replace them with positive patterns right after. It's a beautiful practice. It takes time, and at first it can be difficult. I do teach this here on my YouTube channel. I also have Discord, and you can also work with me directly on how to change your brain and to fundamentally change the way your brain works so you can see yourself and the world in a better light. And this does something even bigger, on a bigger scale, that I've been thinking about recently, which is it helps us humans evolve. If you can take what I'm saying into practice, it will actually change the course of humanity. Because currently, our brains are hardwired to look for problems and fix those problems. But we live in a society where our food is very easily accessible. We have a roof over our heads, water is nearby. We have friends and family that we get to interact with. So most of the time, we're okay. We have our needs met. It's only this capitalistic societal standard, or even our own internal standard, that tells ourselves we need more. And because of that, we are always looking for problems to solve. It's a mix of old biology and new societal standards. We have everything we need, but our brain is always ready at any moment to question, to come into a place of, wait, what else do we need? What else do we need? So if we start to be mindful, if we start to train our brains to be at peace, if we start to understand that other people are reacting poorly to us simply because of their traumas and conditioning and has nothing to do with us, then we can start to change the way our brains actually function and are wired. And then if we do this well enough, when we have children, they will start to adopt that same type of thinking. And if we teach those children at a young age, when their brains are forming, they will start to be more at peace than the generations before them. They will be more happy and content. They will be more compassionate and giving to others. And it will overall advance the human race as a whole. And then they do the same with their children. Can you imagine 3 to 5 generations of people that meditate consistently, that are practicing loving kindness? I know that they're already doing this in the East, but imagine if the whole world was doing this. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's something that we can achieve together. And yeah, if you need any help with meditation, you know where to find me. But also, start now. Start sitting in silence. Start finding that peace within yourself and start changing the way that your brain actually functions. It is you who decides whether you are right or wrong. Whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. And in that way, everything is not our fault and everything is our fault at the same time. Things will or can happen to us at any moment, but it is our reaction to those things that decides what happens next. Be here, be present, decide your future, be at peace, be loving, be kind, and may you also be well. Thanks for listening.